Chapter 11 of The Dragon and the Raven by G. A. Henty. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mike Harris. The Dragon and the Raven by G. A. Henty. Chapter 11. The Isle of Athelney. Edmund spent a month on his lands, moving about among his vassals and dwelling in their abodes. He inspired them by his words, and with fresh spirit and confidence, telling them that this state of things could not last, and that he was going to join the king, who doubtless would soon call them to take part in a fresh effort to drive out their cruel oppressors. Edmund found that, although none knew with certainty the hiding place of King Alfred, it was generally reported that he had taken refuge in the lowlands of Somersetshire, and Athelney was specially named as the place which he had made his abode in. "It's a good omen," Edmund said, "for Athelney lies close to the Parrot, where my good ship the Dragon is laid away." After visiting all the villages in his earldom, Edmund started with Egbert and 4 young men, whom he might use as messengers, for the reported hiding place of the king. First they visited the Dragon and found her lying undisturbed. Then they followed the river down till they reached the great swamps which extended for a considerable distance near its mouth. After much wandering they came upon the hut of a fisherman. The man, on hearing the footsteps, came to his door with a bent bow. When he saw that the newcomers were Saxons, he lowered the arrow, which was already fitted to the string. "Can you tell us," Edmund said, "which is the way to Athelney? We know that it is an island amidst these morasses, but we are strangers to the locality and cannot find it." "And you might search for weeks," the man said, "without finding it, so thickly is it surrounded by deep swamps and woods. But what you want there?" "Men say," Edmund replied, "that King Alfred is hidden there. We are faithful followers of his. I am Ealdorman Edmund of Sherborne, and have good news for the king." "If you are indeed the Ealdorman of Sherborne, of whose bravery I have heard much, I will right willingly lead you to Athelney, if you will. But no king will you find there. There are a few fugitives from the Danes scattered here and there in these marshes, but none, so far as I know, of any rank or station. However, I will lead you thither should you still wish to go." Edmund expressed his desire to visit the island, even if the king were not there. The man at once drew out a small boat from a hiding place near his hut. It would hold 4 at most. Edmund and Egbert stepped in with one of their followers, charging the others to remain at the hut until they received further instructions. The fisherman, with a long pole, took his place in the bow of the boat and pushed off. For some hours they made their way through the labyrinth of sluggish and narrow channels of the morass. It was a gloomy journey. The leafless trees frequently met overhead, the long rushes in the wetter parts of the swamp rustled as the cool breezes swept across them, and a slight coating of snow which had fallen the previous night added to the dreary aspect of the scene. At last they came upon sharply rising ground. "This is Athelney," the fisherman said. "A good hiding place truly, for as you see it rises high above the surrounding country, which is always swampy from the waters of the Parrot and Theme, and at high tides the salt water of the sea fills all these waterways, and the trees rise from a broad sheet of sea. No Dane has ever set foot among these marshes, and were they but provisions to keep them alive, a safe refuge might be found on this island for hundreds of fugitives. Will you be returning tonight?" "That I cannot tell you," Edmund replied, "but at any rate I will hire you and your boat to remain at my service for a week, and will pay you a far higher price than you can obtain by your fishing." The fisherman readily agreed, and Edmund and his companions made their way into the heart of the island. It was of some extent, and rose above the tree tops of the surrounding country. Presently they came to a cottage. A man came out. "What do you seek?" he asked. "You have fugitives in refuge here," Edmund said. "Know you if among them is our good King Alfred?" The man looked astonished. "A pretty place to seek for a king. There are a few Saxons in hiding here. Some live by fishing, some chop wood, but for the most part they are an idle and thriftless lot, and methinks have fled hither rather to escape from honest work or to avoid the penalties of crime than for any other reason." "How may we find them?" Edmund asked. "They are scattered over the island. There are 8 or 10 dwellers here like myself, and several of them have one or more of these fellows with them. Others have built huts for themselves and shift as they can, but it's a hard shift, I reckon. and beech nuts and acorns eked out with an occasional fish caught in the streams is all they have to live on. I wonder that they do not go back to honest work among their kinsfolk." "Ah," Edmund said, "you do not know here how cruel are the ravages of the Danes. Our homes are broken up and our villages destroyed, and every forest in the land is peopled with fugitive Saxons. Did you know that you would speak less harshly of those here? At any rate, the man I seek is young and fair looking, and would, I should think," and he smiled as he remembered Alfred's studious habits, "be one of the most shiftless of those here." "There is such a man," the man replied, "and several times friends of his have been hither to see him. He dwells at my next neighbour's, who is often driven well nigh out of her mind, for she is a dame with a shrewish tongue and sharp temper, by his inattention. She only asks of him that he will cut wood and keep an eye over her pigs which wander in the forest in return for his food, and yet, simple as are his duties, he is for ever forgetting them. I warrant me the dame would not so long have put up with him had he not been so fair and helpless. However bad-tempered a woman may be, she has always a tender corner in her heart for this sort of fellow. There, you can take this path through the trees and follow it on. It will take you straight to her cottage." The description given by the man tallied so accurately with that of the king that Edmund felt confident that he was on the right track. The fact, too, that from time to time men had come to see this person added to the probability of his being the king. Presently they came upon the hut. A number of pigs were feeding under the trees around it. The door was open, and the shrill tones of a woman's voice, raised in anger, could be heard as they approached. "You are an idle loon, and I will no longer put up with your ways, and you may seek another mistress. You are worse than useless here. I do but ask you to watch these cakes while I go over to speak with my neighbour and inquire how she and the child born yestreen are getting on, and you go to sleep by the fire and suffer the cakes to burn. You are not asleep, you say? Then so much the worse. Where were your eyes then, and where was your nose? Why, I smelt the cakes 100 yards away, and you sitting over them, and, as you say, awake, neither saw them burning nor smelt them. You're enough to break an honest woman's heart with your mooning ways. You're ready enough to eat when the meal time comes, but you're too lazy even to watch the food as it cooks. I tell you I'll have no more of you. I've put up with you till I'm verily ashamed of my own patience, but this is too much, and you must go your way, for I will have no more of you." At this moment Edmund and Egbert appeared at the door of the hut. As he had expected from the nature of the colloquy, Edmund saw King Alfred standing contrite and ashamed before the angry dame. "My beloved sovereign!" he cried, running in and falling on his knees. "My trusted Edmund!" Alfred exclaimed cordially. "Right glad am I to see you, and you too, my valiant Egbert. Truly I feared that the good ship Dragon had long since fallen into the hands of our enemy." "The Dragon lies not many miles hence, your majesty, in the hole in which she was built by the river Parrot. She has done bravely and has brought home a rich store of booty, a large share of which has been hidden away for your majesty, and can be brought here in a few hours should you wish it." "Verily I am glad to hear that, Edmund, for I have long been penniless, and I have great need of something at least to pay this good woman for all the trouble she has been at with me, and for her food which my carelessness has destroyed, as you may have heard but now." Edmund and Egbert joined in the king's merry laugh. The dame looked a picture of consternation, and fell upon her knees. "Pardon me, your majesty," she cried, "to think that I have ventured to abuse our good King Alfred, and have even in mine anger lifted my hand against him." "And with right good will too," the king said, laughing. "Never fear, good dame, your tongue has been rough, but your heart has been kindly, or never would you have borne so long with so shiftless a serving man. But leave us now, I pray ye, for I have much to say to my good friends here. And now, Edmund, what news do you bring? I do not ask after the doings of the Dragon, for that no doubt is a long story which you shall tell me later, but how fares it with my kingdom? For I have been in correspondence with several of my thanes, who have from time to time sent me news of what passes without. From what they say, I deem that the time for action is at last nigh at hand. The people are everywhere desperate at the oppression and exactions of the Danes, and are ready to risk everything to free themselves from so terrible a yoke. I fled here and gave up the strife because the Saxons deemed anything better than further resistance. Now that they have found out their error, it is time to be stirring again." "That is so," Edmund said. "Egbert and I have found the people desperate at their slavery, and ready to risk all did a leader but appear. My own people will all take up arms the instant they receive my summons. They have before now proved their valour, and in my crew of the Dragon you have a body which will, I warrant me, pierce through any Danish line."